Coming to you live in this beautiful summer evening in Fresno. This is Darius, your host at GB Wire's Unfiltered podcast. Welcome to all of you in Central California that are tuning in, along with my co-host, News Director Bill McEwen. Good evening, Bill. We have two special guests, both returning guests, Mayor Jerry Dyer with us this evening. Where's the mayor? And Councilmember Miguel Arias. Eric, there we go. Thank you. Uh, welcome, Mayor, and welcome. Is it council member or trustee? I'm sorry, council member. Council member.
Could be dog catcher too, cat watcher, the whole thing, bird
No.
watcher.
Are you going to make a special announcement tonight here on GV Wire?
I'm going to focus on what's in front of us, which is better roads and safer streets, and our attempt to protect the rights of voters in Fresno County.
You know, I love that answer because when Governor Newsom was asked, "Are you going to run for president?" and what did he say? Well, you know what? I'm really focused on the things that I got to do to make California a better place. Okay.
I will tell you, I'm not running for a third term on the city council. That's clear.
Nor am I, Miguel.
Okay.
Nor is the mayor. We're
Well,
still recovering from the scar wounds.
can I say, you know what? This is not a topic of discussion tonight, but here's my thoughts on this, and I've shared this with a few folks. Some folks that go third term, what are they thinking of? Here's the thing: you get into city council, is going to take an average, educated, smart person at least 2 years, at least, to understand land use, impacts, who to trust, what makes sense, how to bring more business in, how to take care of people of Fresno, how to compromise this issue for the betterment and a better good of the community over the long term. It takes several years. And by the time you're kind of up to speed or you're up for re-election, now in your second term, you can probably, you can get some stuff done. You understand the issues well. And guess what? As soon as you get enough seasoning, you're out. New person comes in, I gotta get trained again. And the first 2 to 3 years, sometimes they don't know up or down versus down. And the cycle continues. So I look at this when the state legislator did this. When was that? 2 decades ago, 15-year-old year, with 2010, 2009. And they said 12 years. You have a chance. You have to get reelected. You have to get a chance to be here 12 years. There was a reason behind that. And I support that. I support that. Because what happens, the community, the business community, the folks that do business with the city of Fresno have to re-educate the newcomers.
I think there's a lot of merit to term limit extension, Darius. The mayor will be very familiar with this. A lot of the regional decisions that impact us as a city are done at a regional level. The Fresno Council of Governments, the Fresno County Transportation Authority, the San Joaquin Air Pollution District. And, things in Clovis didn't happen magically. They happened because Harry Armstrong was there for 30 plus years. And by the time you get enough tenure as a Fresno council member or Fresno mayor to serve on these regional bodies, you're termed out. Compared to a mayor who has no term limits in Mendota, Parlier, or Clovis, or the Board of Supervisors, which also serves on these bodies. The lesson learned for me is the public wants more time. I think term limits, people want to be able to debate the merits of them compared to, the fact that the Board of Supervisors, Clovis, other cities around us don't have term limits, so we are at a disadvantage. So I think there's absolutely good merit for extension of term limits. I think we just need to do a better job of giving them enough notice and not a late night meeting with, 3-day notice to have a debate on such a complicated and intense issue. That's my takeaway. That's why, I think they want a better process, not necessarily, throw the baby with the bathwater out.
Mayor, any comments on that?
Yeah, I agree with what Councilmember Arias said, to a degree, not just in the regional meetings, but also at the statewide and the federal level. What you end up with, you end up serving with people that don't have term limits, or they have 3-term limits, and they ultimately end up ascending to positions of power, or they're able to build better or stronger relationships with state officials, with federal officials, and with those relationships come funding to your jurisdiction. And so you lose out on that. And then, I never heard anybody say anything about the Board of Supervisors, who has no term limits, the city of Clovis, no term limits, the Fresno Unified School District, no term limits. Yet when the city of Fresno has a conversation about it, all of a sudden it becomes an evil topic. And when you look across the country, I mean, you got Bakersfield, no term limits, Riverside, no term limits. Oakland has no term limits, or they're looking at maybe making it, I guess, 12 years now. So there's a lot of major cities in California and throughout the nation that don't have term limits. Now, I'm not a fan of not having term limits, but I do think 12 years is about the right time. I wouldn't have said that till I got mayor and realized the ramp up in learning and all the issues, transportation and zoning and airports and just a number of them. And I came in with a whole bunch of experience, 18 years as a police chief. So I can imagine somebody coming into the office who's never been in government. It's like drinking out of a fire hose your first 2+ years. And I heard one of the people say, well, if you can't get things accomplished in 8 years, you shouldn't be in office. Well, those are people that absolutely are ignorant to what a bureaucracy is and the systems that are in place to make sure that monies are being spent wisely. But it takes time. It takes time to get road projects done, housing projects, downtown revitalization. All those things take time. So, it's probably a blessing in disguise for me, not having to put myself in a position where I might have ran for a third term. Certainly, probably made my wife happy. So, we'll move on.
And that's part of and that's probably conversation for another night. Part of our country's election cycles, because you remember House of Representatives. As soon as you get elected, you're campaigning for 2 years down the road. Senate, you have more opportunity. The U.S. Senate is a 6-year term, so you don't have to worry about that. Which means you can actually spend more time on the issues that matter the most to the country. And if you're constantly having to worry about a re-election, and by the time I get up to speed, I'm out. That is I personally support the 12 years because we need. By the way, so many people don't want to run for office because they go, as soon as I put my name in, everything about nothing is going to be personal about my personal life anymore. Old Fresno B. George Hostetter told me once, this was probably 20 years ago, the late George. He said, listen, as soon as you submit something to City Hall to be on an agenda, or as soon as somebody submits their name to become to get into public office, your privacy is down the drain. You don't have privacy anymore because everything about you, so long as it impacts your job, and I can connect that, is public. The public deserves to know everything. And so many folks that really should be, they don't want to go through the exercise and be under this public scrutiny. You make one position, I'm okay with the third term. These folks get up in arms. These folks don't like it. But at the end of the day, we want experienced people that understand the issues, and have a low enough ego to go, I don't understand this issue. I got to surround myself with experts, whether they're in public place or whether they're in a private, such as real estate developers, such as real estate brokers that have done. Matter of fact, you want to design Blackstone Avenue. What should Blackstone Avenue frontage look like? What should the code be? And I argued this with then Ashley Swearingen, the mayor Swearingen. You should, before you talk to your planners that just got out of college, maybe they're 5 years experience, talk to the people that are going to be bringing Starbucks and Chipotle's and nice restaurants and Target and a Save Mart and a grocery store to food deserts. Talk to them. Do they like your plan? Or will they go, you know what? If I have to put the building on Blackstone and parking behind the building, which means it's not going to be as safe for single folks, single women especially, maybe that's not such a hard idea. Anyhow, I'm getting off track. A lot of comments already, but we're going to dive in because I can talk about Blackstone Avenue ad nauseum. Okay, now, while we have all four folks on. Oh, Bill, did you have a quick comment?
Thank you, Darius. I
Yeah.
just wanted to point out, I learned something today by reading GB Wire, and Edward Smith brought it up. And city council elections, some districts are always in midterm elections. So that means they're gonna have lower turnout. They're gonna have fewer people deciding that council member. I don't have a fix for it, but it's something to consider, especially when we in the media report on turnout. It's gonna be lower for those council districts that are up during the midterms. That's all.
That's a great, actually, that's a great analysis or insight. Jerry, any comments on that? You were going to say anything or no?
No, I think consistency is the key. And look what they did at the state of California. They wanted increased voter turnout for sheriff and DA, so they moved it to, to presidential year, right? So they moved it to 28, gave them a 6-year term. I know you have to alternate at the council level because you don't want all new people all at once. So, but I do think that is a factor to consider.
Got it. Okay, with that, let's dive into our beautiful weather forecast, I should say. Hey, some folks are laughing about this. I want to give you guys a true story. That's the weather forecast. Beautiful. And let's put all of us back on the screen, please. At Granville Homes, we have homeowners that move here from from Central Coast. One homeowner that I talked to, this is several years ago, they moved here from Monterey. I said, "What brought you from Monterey to Fresno?" And this couple said, "Well, the weather." I said, I thought it was a joke for a while. No, we're tired of 68 and 72-degree weather. We're tired of morning fog. We're tired of beach sand and on our front door. They didn't have a ocean front property, but he said, "Hey, you live in the area. You get prevailing winds. You get sand in your front door." Constant. We want to grow tomatoes. So the right to grow tomatoes is given to all Fresnans, not necessarily to all Californians, because of our weather. So one of the things we love about Fresno is the heat. I'm not crazy about the evening the temperatures because I typically like to have my windows open, but it gets hot. It's not going to cool down enough. Anyhow, that's what it's going to look like. So we're into hopefully the final stretch of the heat wave. Okay, several polls we got to share with folks. How will you vote on the City of Fresno's half-cent general fund sales tax? Well, this is dated. No, there's nothing that requires the city to spend this tax on roads. So much has changed in the last week. Next poll: U.S. inflation rate more than doubled. How's the Trump economy working? Half the folks said, again, this is GB Wire, Facebook respondents. Total bust, I have to pick between buying chicken or milk at the store. So many folks in the middle class and the lower income folks, when gas prices go up, so for some of us, $50 a month is not that much, $80 a month, but the difference for them is, can I buy chicken or food for my family? Because I got to spend more money in transportation to get wherever I'm going. Let's see. We talked about the third term. We got a lot of other stuff to cover. So we're going to jump right to, do you guys want to talk about sales tax or no? Yes?
It's your show. What are you
Okay.
going to talk about?
Then let's talk about this sales tax plan. If the governor, well, let's forget that for a minute. You guys have it. It's going to go out to a vote. That's the only
Which
thing
one?
that passed 6-1.
The city
Yes,
one or
city
the
one.
other?
The city
Okay.
one. The city one is going to go. It's going to be on the ballot. Is that correct? Even though if the governor Newsom's plan Ashley, I don't know if it's Ashley Swearingen, Governor Newsom, or Governor Newsom's plan. I'm not sure which one it is. And hopefully you guys can maybe
I
Bill.
think the bottom line, Darius,
Yeah.
is the city of Fresno put forward at the mayor's leadership, under his leadership, a stopgap tax measure that would backfill the loss of Measure C going away. Because without $54 million of Measure C dollars to the city of Fresno on an annual basis that covers public transit and road improvements, we would have no other choice but to raid our general fund, which funds police, fire services, and other significant essential services to backfill that huge need. So from our perspective, we included some provisions that if Better Roads, Safer Streets makes on the ballot and gets approved, this tax goes away. So it ensures that our residents are not double taxed. But again, our backs are against the wall to make sure that we don't engage in massive layoffs of employees, and more importantly, not be able to maintain our roads to the safe standards that people expect when they're traveling within our city, and of course, getting to their jobs and doctor appointments through our city bus system. So I commend the mayor for bringing the proposal forward. As you can see, it got approval from 6 of our 7 council members to proceed. And it also, as an outgoing council member for me, I think our job is to leave the city in a better place that we found it, and to leave the next council members an opportunity to continue funding essential services. And this measure would do that if Better Roads, Safer Streets does not make it to a ballot, as the Board of Supervisors have tried to block it.
Yeah, so,
Got it.
well said. You know, from my perspective, I think you got to go back in time and look at where we've been. So, you know, we knew that the measure was going to lapse, Measure C was going to go away in mid-2027. And so, as you recall, we put together an effort in 2022 to get ahead of it and to work through the COG and to get a measure on the ballot that was going to allow us to continue Measure C. And unfortunately, that measure only garnered 58% of the vote back in 2022, and it failed. So then fast forward, we had one more bite at the one more opportunity to get a Measure C renewal. We went through the COG committee, very controversial along the way. We had a lot of friction that occurred between members of the COG. Quite frankly, 11 of the members of the COG were in alliance. There were 4 people on the COG, or 4 mayors plus a county that was opposed to the 11. And so at the end of the day, even though the steering committee brought forth recommendations for a measure that the COG would bring forth, there was a comment made by at least one board of supervisor, if not 2, that they would not pass it at the board of supervisors, which ultimately proved to be true, and that it wouldn't be placed on the ballot. Now, we wouldn't be here today if there wasn't some duplicate signatures. There were 32,000 signatures gathered by the citizen group. Once they started finding irregularities in terms of duplicates, then they had to go from random count to a full-on count. And that took a period of time to get it done. And unfortunately, by the time it got to the Board of Supervisors, and then they ordered a study to be done, that allowed this measure to miss the deadline by 1 business day. Which then, you know, I accepted that fact. I didn't like it, but accepted it. And so, you know, all along the way, I was standing at press conferences and saying, you know, we have no plan B. We have no plan B. And then I thought to myself as a mayor, how can you be the mayor and not have a plan B? When you were in the police department, you always had a plan B, C, D, you know, contingency plans, they call it. So then the council president and I worked closely together, scrambled, and we were able to put together a plan B. And that plan B was gap funding, which was a half-cent sales tax. Initially, we talked about a 3/8. I encouraged them to go to a half. And initially, it was going to be 6 years. I encouraged them to go to a 10-year. And so we had a 10-year half-cent sales tax. And instead of making it a specific tax for transportation, which would have needed 2/3 of the vote, which I know in today's environment is nearly impossible to get, we went with a general tax. I will say that we've done some polling, some very credible polling, plus or minus 3 or 4%, and it polls very, very well. This general tax in the city of Fresno polls very, very well. And I'll tell you where it polls the highest, and you're going to be shocked, is in Northeast Fresno. And one of the reasons it polls high there, I think, because they know the portion of the money can support public safety as well. So general tax in this sense is good. So fast forward, we get it before the council, we get the council support 6-1, and then all of a sudden, here's the dilemma. Last week, I learned that I knew that the Board of Supervisors was not going to put this on the, have a special meeting and put it on the ballot. So let's create our measure. And we knew in March of 28, Better Roads, Safe Streets would be on the ballot. And so I didn't want to have two really competing measures. I didn't want to have opposition, certainly from anyone. And we also didn't want to double tax the people of Fresno. Support City of Fresno measure, then come back and support another. Now you get a 1 cent sales tax. So we made it to where it would sunset, not only in 10 years, but a Better Roads, Safe Streets passed in March of 28. That's the approach we were taking. Then last week, the night before, or day before, I think we were going to council, or maybe 2 days before, I learned this effort at the state level to bring forth a bill and get it passed. And it has to remind you, it's emergency, has to get 2/3 of the vote from the assembly, 2/3 of the vote from the Senate, go through all the committees, and then get on the governor's desk, signed, turned into the county clerk by Friday, August 7th. That's a tall order. So I've held on to our measure. Council knows this, they've asked me to, until we can get a better sense on whether this state law is going to pass that then forces Better Roads, Safe Streets to be on the November 2026 ballot. Here's the dilemma I face as a mayor. We're running into short time. We have to have it to the clerk in its final form on Friday. And we still have to go through the city clerk, city attorney for review. And whatever changes the county clerk makes, those have to be made. And so run out of time. And so I don't want to do what I've already done once as a mayor. Allow our future success as a city to be put in the hands of another body. And that body was the Board of Supervisors. They dictated, 3 people dictated what the future of Fresno was going to hold in terms of neighborhood streets and transportation. I'm leery that we're going to wait so long that with this, we're on the state, whether the governor's going to sign, et cetera, that ultimately we miss a deadline for the city of Fresno too. And so worst case scenario, we have our ballot measure on, Better Roads, Safe Streets on, both of them pass. Ours goes away, Better Roads, Safe Streets passes, and that's what we have. So I don't know what's going to happen over the next few days. I really don't. Can't call it.
So,
Hold on.
hard place, but isn't your deal a lot better for the citizens of Fresno? I mean, for 40 years, the city of Fresno has been subsidizing the county. This brings more dollars to Fresno.
Yeah, and it's true. I think Councilmember Arias brought it up the other day, and I reiterated it from the dais that for the last 40 years, there's a formula on how much cities get, jurisdictions, rural, urban, et cetera, on both transit and roads. And for the last 40 years, we've not gotten our fair share. You're very right, Bill. In fact, because it was based on a formula on the road side that 75% of the money, the formula was going to be dictated by population, 25% based on road miles. Well, the county has double our road miles, so they're going to get more money, even though they only have about, I think 15, 16% of the population in unincorporated areas. We have 53%. So historically, even though 53% of the population, we were only getting about 45% of the money. You're right in the fact that this sales tax measure that we have would generate about 65%, $65 million a year, more than what we would get from the Better Roads, Safe Streets. Now, on the flip side, when it comes to transit, the formula is, for example, say currently in the measure, 24% of all the money goes to public transportation. Of that, there's a formula that's 70%. We end up getting 70% of it in the city of Fresno. So we get more than our share because of how much public transportation. Now, what I don't have in front of me is how much money Better Roads, Safe Streets would generate for us as compared to the 65 million, because there's some unknowns. The unknowns is there's regional money in there that is competitive, and there's also innovative transportation that is also competitive, which is 4%. We don't know what that is. We know we get 1% for airports. We get 25% for transit, and we get, again, 80% of that, or 70%. And then we get, the roads money, 65% of it, and then we're going to get a percentage. So yes, there's probably going to be more money. The downside is Better Roads, Safe Streets, 30-year measure, our measure, 10-year measure.
And that's the problem a lot of folks and I have with the 30-year measure. 30 years from now, and I've said it on this show many times, and I know you, Mayor, you've supported that, but 30 years is too long. We don't know what the future of transportation is going to look like. But let me go to this, what we have on the screen. What is Governor Newsom's plan? Why is he involved in because what here, Nick Gonzalez says, this is not primarily about road funding. It's about Swearingen leveraging a tax measure as a political instrument to finance and install preferred candidates. The approach mirrors Measure P: install loyal allies in positions of authority, then safeguard the resulting network. Competence is subordinated to political loyalty. Too much construction, ruining local non-franchise businesses. What is Governor Newsom's role? Why is Governor Newsom and the state legislator getting involved in putting that measure back on? And what are the repercussions of that?
If I can take this, Mayor.
Go ahead.
From my conversations with Assemblymember Soria, who you, as you all know, served on the city council and is very familiar with Supervisor Bradfield's tactics, she simply wants the voters to make the final decision. And in Fresno, we have a long history. When the community gathers signatures, qualifies the ballot initiative, the supervisors have never requested a study. They have simply honored the request of voters and put on the ballot. They did that for the zoo tax, the library tax, twice for the Fresno state tax. And in this case, the supervisors, in my view, have overreached and are trying to suppress the voters who signed those 32,000 petitions to have their day on the election ballot. So Assemblymember Soria and Senator Caballero have made it crystal clear that the final word should always be with the voters, and no one should create obstacles to give before the ballot. In this case, they had more than 200 days since the initiative was completed and submitted to county clerk to ask for a study. At no time did any supervisor ask for a study during those 200 days. When it came to the hearing, they limited the debate to 10 minutes on each side for a multi-billion-dollar initiative. And after they had already all indicated, not all of them, but after Buddy Mendez and Member Bradfield had already said that this was dead on arrival. So they essentially played a jury and the judge on a ballot initiative that the voters have a right to put before all the voters in this county. So I commend them for taking it forward to the governor.
So is it okay for then the governor and the state to get involved? And I think that was a story on, but that was the article, that column that Bill wrote, opinion page. Is it okay for a governor, and I want to hear from Bill too on this, but first to the both of you, Miguel and Jerry, is it okay for a governor to get involved in a county's affairs?
Well,
Jerry,
I would say this first. The county is an extension of state government legally. The county is an extension of state government. The vast majority of the county's work is just executing the state laws. In this case, the governor has the authority, and so does the legislature to direct the county board of supervisors as what is being considered.
So
okay, Jerry.
Here's my my short answer, I guess. To my knowledge, the governor has not been made aware. Well, he has been made aware of it now, but he was not involved in this at the onset. He was not involved, based on everything I've heard, to bring forth legislation. That was simply conversations with Senator Caballero and Assemblymember Soria. Those were the two, one taking the lead on the Senate, and the other one taking the lead on the Assembly. And
Who
what
was
they've
talking
done,
to them? I'm sorry, who was talking to them?
um,
The
well,
local folks?
well, I don't know. I can't tell you who that was. I'm guessing it was folks from the Better Roads, Safe Streets. Maybe it was Ashley Swearingen, but it was folks from that coalition,
Okay.
not the city of Fresno. And so I couldn't tell you who initiated those conversations. And the conversations may have been initiated at the state level from Assemblymember Soria and Caballero. I do not know. So that is how this thing got started. I can tell you that I've been asked by Senator Caballero, I've been asked by Swearingen, I've been asked by a number of folks for, to reach out to the governor, to call him, to text him, to so that he does sign this bill. I have notified his office and made them aware of the fact, because they weren't aware, at least at the local level, they were not aware that this effort was underway.
You mean
Since that time,
you mean Fresno? You mean city of Fresno's effort?
the effort to have legislation brought forth, I don't know when the governor's office was made aware of that, but it was not at the onset.
But does the
It
governor
was,
know about the city of Fresno's attempt to put a 0.5-cent sales tax that will take care of the city? Does the governor know about that?
I do not know, Darius. I could not tell you. I've not had conversations with him. I did meet with some of his local folks yesterday. You know, he has local people in Fresno that work out of his office. I did meet with them, updated them on everything we've been doing. They were aware of the fact that we went forth and created our own measure. I don't know how much of that's been relayed back to his office. But we, like I said, we took matters into our own hands as a local body. I'm not going to wait around on the state. I'm definitely not going to wait around on the county, because I can't have people determining our future. Now, the state intervention is, from my perspective, is appreciated. I think, they could have been doing a lot of other things, but as the council member said, there's a concern that maybe the Board of Supervisors has overstepped their boundaries. Whether they have or not, I don't know.
Okay. Then bring in Bill McEwen. Bill, you wrote a opinion page on what happened and former Mayor Swearingen's involvement on this. And you had some very interesting folks that put money behind getting this thing passed. Kind of, why don't you?
The first comment I want to make is Ashley Swearingen told GB Wire she was totally surprised by Senator Caballero and Esmeralda Soria's legislative attempts. That's simply not true. I obtained a copy of the lobby firm they engaged. It was signed on July 28th. That's way back last week. So she very much knew exactly what was going on. People of Fresno also need to know that the lobbying firm that has been engaged wrote the language for Proposition 50, in which California redrew its congressional maps. And Gavin Newsom said, we can't let Trump jerry-rig the election. And yet he's now going to turn around and try and trump Fresno. My intelligence says he's ready to sign it. It's going to pass the Senate. And the only potential sticking point is the floor vote that will be required in the Assembly. You have 80 members of the Assembly, you have 60 Democrats, you have 19 Republicans. It requires 2/3. One seat is empty. So what they need is 7, 8, 9 Democrats to not vote against this, just not record a vote. And so the pressure from those that are opposed to better roads and better roads, safe streets is to compare this to a Trump move. And knowing that if Democrats sign off on a move that could be declared to be a Trump move, it could prove troublesome for those that are in competitive districts. That's the politics of where this stands. I agree with a lot of what Ashley Swearingen does. People are telling me, why are you bashing on her? Why all this? It's the duplicity, it is the deception. She went on KMJ radio last week and talked about her gutty little grassroots local organization. That is pure poppycock. This organization is mammoth. It's the most powerful one in Fresno. It has assets totaling $170 million. And since she got there, the nature of the Central Valley Community Foundation's totally changed. It used to be wealthy donors in the city of Fresno parked their money there. Money was given to nonprofits that provided direct aid to people, given for scholarships to people going to Fresno State. She has totally changed this apparatus into a political machine. And it is no longer local. It's not grassroots. It accepts money that is washed through a series of foundations from billionaires and millionaires all over the country. And as I showed today, also all over the world. We have better roads, safe streets, accepted a $150,000 donation from an organization that says it's based in Sacramento. It's controlled by a man who lives in Switzerland and is not an American citizen. And now think about what happens whenever Central Valley Community Foundation gets something on the ballot. This is all about leverage. And I wrote about, how this would affect city council races, because the people they send out to pass better roads, safe streets are going to be telling people to vote for Ariana Martinez Slot. They're going to be telling them to vote for Joaquin Arambula. They're going to be telling them to vote in the supervisor's race for Maria Pacheco. They're going to be telling people to vote for Nadeep Singh. And it's kind of hidden, but it is powerful. This exact same thing happened with Proposition 20, with Measure P, the sales tax. They were out there banging the streets. I voted for Measure P. Don't fire me for that, Darius, because I believed at the time it looked like a good plan for our parks. It's been kind of slow to take shape so far. But the reality was this was also about supporting candidates. And now when you think about the amount of money that's there, that has enabled Central Valley Community Foundation to bring the unions into their corner in a lot of cases. Anytime there's big construction project that goes through Fresno Drive, which is controlled by this foundation, it's Ashley Swearingen's group that's deciding this. So lately, and I wasn't the first to coin the term, I have no idea, it was probably someone on the far right, they call it a shadow government. But if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it is a shadow government. And I'm sure Mayor Jerry Dyer has had to contend with this. I'm sure he's had to make concessions to this group, because when you cross them, they punish you. That's the end of my sermon.
So, Bill, I think we've had a shadow government in this community for generations called the Chamber of Commerce. Every other association that is involved in city politics. It's also the labor unions. But I want to point out a couple of things. One is Measure P has resulted in every single park in my district and just about every park in the city being improved. Not one penny of Measure P has ever gone to the foundation. This measure, every single dollar would go to every city and the county of Fresno. There is no role for the foundation to play in its oversight or in its operation. And since we're being truth tellers, let's also talk about the opposition. The opposition to this measure has been the consultants who build freeways. And all they want us to do is continue subsidizing the state's responsibility of building more freeways instead of fixing our local roads. The measure that they drew up was written by consultants for the benefit of consultants, included 20% of the money going to consultants, and only focus on building more freeways that benefit the consultants and their interests. And they failed to get off their butts, gather the signatures, and get something qualified. So I may agree to disagree with you on a lot of your comments, but I want to be crystal clear. Not one penny of either Measure P or this measure would ever go to a third party. It goes directly to jurisdictions to fix exactly what's being communicated, which is our roads and funding public transit.
Well, I don't dispute that. What I'm just talking about is, let's be honest. Yes, you want to pass better roads, safe streets. You also want to get all these people elected, and you want to do it without really having your fingerprints on it. And you're no longer a local grassroots organization. Can we stop that nonsense? I mean, would you say it's still a local grassroots organization?
I'm not on their board, but neither is the Fresno Chamber of Commerce. Most of their money comes from the Chevron, a national and international corporation, the Apartment Association, a statewide and national organization. They're no longer a grassroots local organization. They haven't been for 50 years.
And Fresno Chamber of Commerce, when was the last time they had a major role in getting a measure passed or folks elected into office? I don't
Every
remember
single
that,
election
ever.
cycle, every
They're
single election cycle,
they're
they
irrelevant.
run
I'm just going to say they're irrelevant.
they run a PAC called the Fresno Chamber PAC, and they fund $500,000 to elect council members. I've been on the opposite side of them.
Okay.
Yes. They fund a PAC every single cycle. Just look at this last primary election and who they funded. The point is, gentlemen, everyone has their group. Everyone funds from their sources. The money is disclosed, and everyone has their interests. In this case, 11 mayors, 80% of the residents and the population of this county have said, we want this measure, and 3 individuals are setting roadblocks, and they too have to answer to somebody. In this case, the state of California.
We have, by the way, you bring up donations. FTA, Fresno Teachers Association, is involved in city council races now. Besides,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
And not just council races, but also, council items. And I think there's been a crossover. That's really only happened this last year.
It has. And I would say that there is so much each of our institutions have to improve that we have plenty on our plates, that we should not be spending time across the street on other matters. In this case, I don't spend any time on county issues. I have enough on my plate, except when they get in the way of us fixing our neighborhoods. I've only been in Sacramento twice in my almost 8 years on the council. Once with the mayor to block Sacramento from taking our sales tax money on distribution centers, and another time today to have the state restore voter rights back in Fresno County that the supervisors have been trying to block for 6 months now.
Yeah. I'll chime in on, Measure P was talked about, and I'll just say it briefly. I know that's not the topic of this, but, I opposed Measure P at the time because I thought there were other needs in the city of Fresno, like public safety, that was not being funded. And we tried at that time to negotiate a way that we could do parks and police and fire. And thought we had a deal at that time. Dave McDonald was very engaged in it, and that fell through at the 11th hour. But having said that, I think the Measure P generates right now about $49 million a year for us. It has been money that is well received and welcomed by me as the mayor. I say that. But if there are some flaws in Measure P, I'll tell you what they are. Number one is you cannot bond with Measure P money. And so that'd be like saying, well, I'm going to save enough money to buy a house. Well, you'll never save enough money because inflationary costs and so forth. So when we want to go out and buy land to develop a park, what we have to do is cobble money together. And then by that time, the land value goes up, or in terms of developing that park, the cost of developing that park goes up. So we can't bond money for Measure P. The other thing is that it's divided up into so many buckets. For example, of that 49 million, about 6.5 million goes to the arts, for the cultural arts. And then you have money that goes to river bottom. You have money that goes to, maintenance. You have money that can go for park acquisition. Then it's divided up into highest needs neighborhoods, a percentage. It is really, really hard to administer in local government. And so every year we sit in a room and we're trying to scratch our head saying, how can we make all of this fit till we can buy playground equipment here? Can we buy it there? No, it's not highest needs. Okay, so we'll wait till next year on that one. So it's the number of buckets and the prescriptive nature has been a challenge, and in fact we cannot bond. So, and the delay was also as a result of some litigation there, right? Was it a 2/3 measure or was it a 50+1? Ultimately, the courts ruled 50+1, and then by the time that got implemented and the monies came in, it was a period of time. So anyway, that's it. You're muted, Darius.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mayor.
That's the best you sounded, by the way.
Did you like the way I sounded?
Yeah, when you were muted, yeah.
But
I love you
but-
too.
Bill,
by the
Bill
way,
said
Darius,
the same thing.
I
Quietly.
love you too.
I would say, Darius, I think that the final straw for many of us who support the Better Roads, Safer Streets measure is when the Board of Supervisors decided to contract the opponents of the measure to do the unbiased study that they requested. That is such a slap in the face and abuse of power that made it crystal clear that these guys are not interested in, honoring the voters' will.
Let me a couple of comments, and then I'm going to turn back to Bill on the Measure P folks and who ended up suing to make sure it actually passed. Because the way that it was set up, you need a 2/3 vote for it to pass, and I think it got about 51%. And then, of course, after litigation, courts decided, I think it was the 5th district, decided that because it was a ballot measure, we got the votes. I'm sorry, we got the folks signing up, and we got X number of folks that signed the petition. That now 50% 50% +1 works. And who was involved in that litigation? I'm going to bring Bill back, but a couple of comments. Nick Gonzalez, local supervisors voted to pause the road tax for a real impact study. Now, Assembly members Soria and Senator Caballero are rewriting a completely different bill in Sacramento just to force it onto the November ballot anyway. That's not letting voters decide. That's state politicians overriding the local process because they didn't like the outcome. Nick Gonzalez goes to say, thank you, Bill. You the man of the people. And then if you think Francisco, I don't understand that. No shadow government due to the history of the police chiefs way before Dyer. Bill, you deserve a statue. Bill McEwen statue. Actually, we're making one in GBWire. If you guys want to contribute to that fund, we'll send you information. Nikki, real, how often are taxes spent reckless? You guys spend it like no sweat off your back. We should take away many of your things. Okay, pensions. All right. Any other thoughts? By the way, again, Chamber of Commerce. I don't know how. I've maybe 20 years ago or 30 years ago, Chamber was very impactful. Today, if somebody's running for city council or any other position, do they need to go in front of the chamber? And if so, do they get a check for what, $500? Maybe it's more. Does chamber play in politics? I guess, Jerry or
Yeah, I think the political action committee for the chamber still plays a role. They did when I ran for office. They endorsed me. They provided funding. Now, the funding generally, I think you heard Councilmember say, some of it's through an outside body. I know during my election, Chevron was a heavy investor in Fresno, and but I can also say, like for example, this last race, they supported, got behind Brandow for Board of Soups. Bredefield won. Their record maybe not as good as it used to be. But they still get involved. Same with the Building Industry Association. They're not like they used to be either. With the groups like you're seeing form today that are marching into council all the time, they're the ones that the grassroots are the ones that seem to be much more influential in elections.
Agreed. And we just talked about Central Valley Community Foundation and Bill's column. Let's put Bill's column back up on 22. If those of you that have not read it, it's a fascinating, full of important information, and Bill has connected the dots from Europe to Fresno, California, and our taxes and how all these things are connected. Read
So
the
Darius,
article. Go ahead.
so the interesting thing is that the lobbying firm that, and I believe they actually wrote the gut and amend bill, because I'm told Assemblymember Soria was in Mexico at the time this language was being put together. That's kind of regardless, but this lobbying firm's the same lobbying firm that wrote the language for Measure P. And it wrote the language stipulating that it would need 2/3 to pass. Then, and this was a very active issue. You'd had a previous ruling about a ballot measure in Oakland that said if the citizens put it on the ballot, it's just simple majority, 50% plus one. But there wasn't it wasn't unanimous opinion in the state of California. It came in at 52% under the old rules, or under the rules at the time, it didn't pass. This lobbying group, which has a law arm, turned around and sued the city of Fresno. Basically sued the city of Fresno over the work that it performed. And then Building Healthy Communities, which is very closely affiliated with the Central Valley Community Foundation, they went to court demanding $600,000 in legal fees for the work that was done to get Measure P passed or considered passed. They did a good job with it, but the judge on that case knocked it down to $290,000. So here we are a few years later, and the same law firm is very much involved in this. And as I said, the same firm wrote the language for Proposition 50, which redrew the congressional maps in California, overturning our voter-approved independent redistricting commission. I believe in independent redistricting commissions. That's why I was so critical of this do-nothing nonsense advisory commission that was proposed. But people need to know these things. And again, I'm not telling people how to vote. I'm just trying to give them information so they can make up minds for themselves, and also so they can have the ability to weigh intent and to see how the dots all connect. Councilmember Arias talked about, responsibility of tracking the money. I can tell you it's not easy to do these days. The right does it all the time. They wash these contributions through these political action committees, through 501c4s. And sometimes it's very hard to tell who actually gave the big dollars that end up in your local races. And that's unfortunate. That's the result of a Supreme Court that believes that spending money on campaigns is part of free speech.
Jerry,
I would also add, if I could, to Bill's description there.
Quickly, Miguel.
We were also sued by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association, in addition to Building Healthy Communities. And since the courts have ruled that we owe Building Healthy Communities at least $1 million in legal fees, since we have declined to pay them for several years now.
Okay. Jerry, if you could roll back the clock to a year ago, would you just come up with a Fresno only measure that says, you know what, we're going to get $65 million a year. We take care of public safety, roads, congestion relief, the way we're designing it with our planners, our council members, and we'll do workshops. Would you, if you could roll back the clock, would you do that? And then I have a second part to that question.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't, Darius. And I'll tell you why, is because for us to do a specific tax in Fresno, it's going to require a 2/3 vote. We're horrible in the city of Fresno. You know, who markets it? You got to have private money. The city can't use city dollars to market that. And so we would have to rely on folks like yourself and others to put together the money, the campaign. And, you know, that there was an effort in 2022 to do that. And it failed. You know, still 58% of the votes, not bad, but not 2/3. Now, I can tell you that I had multiple council members over the last year when there was all this controversy in COG happening with before it was even named Better Roads, Safe Streets, come to me and say, why don't we do our own measure? Why don't we do our own measure? And, you know, we thought about it, we really did. And, but, you know, to do a specific tax or a general tax, and are we going to get a lot of opposition from the very group that has now put together Better Roads, Safe Streets? So, you know, we went along with the coalition. For me, it was about how do we not lose $55 million a year and start going backwards with our roads. I said it the other day that we're on target right now within about 3 years to have our pavement condition index exceed 70. We were at 60 4 years ago. Well, Clovis average is about 70. So, and we could go beyond that. And part of it has to do with the fact we use American Rescue Funds. We have a $100 million bond and pay more now, pay less later. But if we lose Measure C, we're going to go backwards 3 to 5% a year. So we'll be below 60 in a matter of, you know, just a couple of years. And so it was like like politics. Sometimes you learn to swallow your vomit and like it, and you work with, you know, in going in a certain direction. And, you know, you have to say, okay, what's good for the county versus what's good for the city? You know, could I have lived with a couple percent less on facts? Yes. But at the end of the day, this is what we got. We had a coalition, and they have the ground game to get this thing done across the finish line. So I have to respect that. They did it with Measure P. And so those are all the thoughts that went into it. And so our council, again, voted 7-0 to support it. 11 jurisdictions supported it, 11 mayors. And that's the way it works.
Question, what about SB1 money? That tax that's supposed to be for roads and freeway repair, not expansion, but repair. And I know there was a big controversy when it first was rolled out or it became law on how much is North Fresno going to get versus South Fresno. Are we getting SB1 money? Do we have any accounting from the city or the state that says, hey, you gave us X amount of money for SB1 from your gas tax, and here's how much of it is coming back? Do we have that anywhere?
Yeah, SB1 money's critical to us. It's not as much as a lot of people think that, you know, with the state tax, because I don't know where it goes, but it doesn't reach to the local jurisdiction to a high degree. But you know, when I build my budget, you know, I meet with Public Works and we go over what can we use SB1 money for, what can we use ABX 86 money for, because we want to do some tree trimming in there. Some of the money you can't use for signal lights, some you can't use for hawks, can't use them for street lights, can't use one for sidewalks, but you can use this money for side. So by the time you cobble all that money together, you try to put together, you know, all the things that are important to your city. You know, like we put about $3.3 million a year into tree trimming. Well, it's got to come from somewhere. And, you know, it comes from those dollars. So along with pressure washing, sidewalks, street sweeping, all those things.
And if I may, Mayor, ours SB1 tax is about $10 million compared to the $54 million we get from Measure C currently. Additionally, it's a declining revenue for the city because as people get electric cars, they're not paying the gas tax. Therefore, it's been dwindling every year after year for the last 5 years. So that's a dwindling revenue source. And most of the money that the state gets on the gas tax goes to state freeways, which is, again, our argument is if the state is taxing us and keeping the money to fix freeways, why do we have to build local freeways? Why not let the state build the freeways, let the state maintain the freeways, since they're getting our gas tax dollars and keeping the vast majority of it?
So that's a fair point. Darius, I just want
Yeah.
to point out one thing, because it's been talked about the defeat of Measure C extension in 2022. Everybody should know that Building Healthy Communities, which is aligned with the Central Valley Community Foundation, took credit for that defeat. So they're talking about how important it is to pass a road tax today. Yet 4 years ago, they told the voters of Fresno, up yours.
I
My way,
actually, I actually,
my way or the highway. That's the way they operate.
Is that in your article too?
I actually oppose Measure C2, Bill, because I said no more highways, no more funding highways in the expense of funding residential streets, because our residential streets are crumbling and we keep on building freeways for the state. No more, if the state has money for a high-speed rail, and if Henry has enough money to build his high-speed rail train, then he has money to fix the freeways that the
Well,
state owns.
that's a fair point, but again, people are claiming to be holier than thou. And my point is, this is hardball. And my main point is, please don't tell us you're the gutty little grassroots group anymore,
Is
okay?
that's your message to Ashley Swearingen, Bill?
Yeah, be honest.
Okay. Jerry, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was just, going to say that, there's no shortage of personalities involved in all this. I've learned over the last year, and I mean, you could put together a novel or a soap opera based on all the things that have occurred this last year. I got my buddy Steve Brandow, who I love. He's working as part of the coalition now with the community foundation, and we talk a lot on this and trying to get this over the finish line. And Steve was on the board of supervisors before, and they actually used a comment Steve had made on the board of supervisors to oppose our last measure in 22. And there's just so many players and personalities involved in this thing that somebody should make a movie out of this, because I don't know whether it would be a comedy or a nightmare, but maybe a blend of the two.
A dramedy, a dramedy.
But I just, you know what, as a mayor of Fresno, I look at this and I was telling my team today, I said, there's a whole lot of people that are out there weighing in on this, that are either supportive, opposing it, but none of them are responsible for paving the streets of Fresno like I am or like Miguel is. Nobody's responsible for providing public transportation like we are, but everybody else has an opinion and fighting this measure and doing this and opposing. It's like, at the end of the day, I just want our streets paved. I want to be able to provide public transportation, and that's really, and have enough money to go out and solicit match monies. The 54 million we get, 20.6 million of that is used for match, which brings in about $368 million. So we don't have that to do the match. So I'm just trying to, I just want to pave our streets.
Okay, what is your message to the GV Wire audience? Support the city of Fresno's measure, and what about if Governor Newsom and the state legislator has the ability to override board of supervisors, and that gets on? Which one should the citizens of city of Fresno vote for?
I would say support them both, and the reason is very simple, because I want to make sure one of them passes. And if ours passes and that one doesn't, we have our measure. If their measure passes and ours pass, theirs supersedes ours. So we have the Better Roads, Safe Streets. I just think this maybe gives us two bites at the apple. And if we don't, I mean, I haven't heard anything negative about putting both of these ballot measures on, because one sunsets if the other passes. And like I said, our measure, I haven't seen polling on the Better Roads, Safe Streets, but I have seen ours, and it polls very, very high, even with negatives.
What are the negatives? Can you share with us? Or you can hold it for when.
The negatives are that Gary Butterfield doesn't support it. Neither does Nathan Magzig or Buddy Mendez, none of which are responsible for fixing roads in the city of Fresno.
Gary was not available for tonight, but Mayor and Miguel, would you be open for to join back up with Supervisor Brett, so we can have this discussion after, obviously, Friday. That's
No.
a nice yes. I thank
No.
you. Thank you for that
No,
yes.
Hey, I'm done.
I would be happy to show up if Gary votes to put the item on the ballot. Then we can have a debate over the ballot
Well, there's
item.
okay. Can we remove some of the strings or conditions of approval? I don't. Okay, okay. Well. So Mayor was a yes, and
No,
Miguel.
No.
Okay. Okay. Couple of things before we go. By the way, President Trump, whether intentionally or unintentionally, has become an incredible green energy president, kind of by default. Look at if you're an Asian country, you're going, I can't rely on oil anymore. United States can't protect these Gulf states. Iran is bombing the crap out of them. The straits are closed. I got to switch over to solar or nuclear or something else. So unintentionally, President Trump is becoming the #1 green energy president uh, uh, on our planet, because again, so many countries go, we should not be relying on American oil, Venezuelan oil, Iran, Saudi oil, because any number of days things could blow up. We got to rely on sun, which every country on earth gets. Uh, and today there were six states had primaries. One of the most contested ones, that APAC, the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, put up some number between 20 and 50 million dollars, is Abdul El Sayed. Do we have that?
Yes, Darius,
Hold on one second. Hold on. We have, I think, we have an image, because he's ahead. There we go. That's the image we were looking for. Can you guys read that? Because I can't quite read that. He's up like 8 points. Is that correct, Bill?
I have it, him leading 51.2% to 45.3 over the establishment Democrat candidate. This is a primary. 27% of the votes are in.
Okay, hold on. Then wait a minute. Where is the other 51? Wait a minute. I can't quite make that out.
I'm reading it off the New York Times, recently
Yeah, it's
updated.
accurate. I
Okay,
mean,
there we go. There's a third candidate. That's why the numbers don't add. Okay, he's at 51, 45. So he's the candidate that went after APAC, after Israel's, whatever you want to call it, occupation, killing. In our country, we can criticize our country, but we cannot criticize another country, which is Israel. But he went after Israel's prime minister, Israel's occupation, killing of people in Gaza, displacing over 2 million people aggressively. Him and Mayor of New York City, Mamdani. And he's ahead. And of course, Mamdani, who got an incredible amount of support from young New York Jews. Incredible amount of support. He's the mayor of New York, and he's the next potential superstar for the Democratic Party. And then it looks like Abdul El Sayed, who is a physician, I think, if I remember correctly, by education and practice, and he wants health care for folks and a lot of other things, and he's opposed to the way Israel is prosecuting this war against the Palestinians and other activities in southern Lebanon. A lot of folks have died there, buildings bombed, Christians killed, etc.
I think from my perspective, Darius, to have a foreign country spend a record amount of money trying to influence our congressional elections is unprecedented. But the message by the voters on the Democratic side is clear. We're not going to adhere to the directions of a foreign government. We're worried about domestic issues, and we want people who are going to fight for our domestic issues, irrespective of what APAC is telling us. So I think that's good news for the Democratic constituency to be so focused on domestic issues and not be swayed by a foreign country, irrespective of how good or how righteous they believe their issue is. It should be an American decision.
Great points, Miguel. There's a, yeah. From what I understand, they spent well we don't know exactly, 30 to 60 million dollars, multiple different entities have gotten involved, US, and I don't have the details, but there's lots of New York Times articles about money pouring into this particular race. This is the U.S. Senate race out of Michigan, and really America. When we talk about MAGA, Make America Great, or Make America Great Again, Make America Great.
What about we just get back to make things in America again?
Making it, yeah, making America, and you know what? Here's what's interesting. You brought up the Democrats. I understand if my memory serves it, my memory is correct. All Democrats voted against merging U.S. military and Israeli military, except Adam Gray. Adam Gray is the only yes vote. If there's articles out there. Please don't take my word only. But if I remember that correctly, I was really surprised because I ran into Jim Costa and I said, "Hey, you voted against this, because our military should be United States of America's military, not engaged with any other country, because that's a no-brainer."
Yeah.
So one of your colleagues, though, I was surprised.
Darius, APAC's Political Action Committee and its super PAC spent about 30.6 million in that Michigan congressional race.
Thank you, Bill. One Senate seat. Because if you go in against Israel, we're going to spend a lot of money. And of course, Tucker Carlson, those of you that watch Tucker Carlson, he debated U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. You should watch that podcast if you haven't had a chance. So, of course, he talks about the United States government should be about protecting and spending money here in our United States. Potholes, what we just talked about, parks, education, healthcare. You're cutting these services for Americans, veterans. You're going to put more money into veteran services, but yet we're spending a lot of money in other parts of the world, a lot of money.
And I think that goes back to all these conversations we've had over the last several months is people are seeing taxes going up and up, but local investment not following that increase. They're seeing cost of food, cost of rent, cost of electricity, and they're not seeing the investment. That's why we've been so focused on how do we lower the cost of living in Fresno, and then how do we keep Fresno taxpayer money in Fresno? Because the farther it gets from the place you collected, the least likely it's going to be that it returns back to your neighborhood, and that's what we've seen. I remember this conversation, Measure C, the same gentleman, World War II veteran on Kearney Boulevard, saying they told me when they passed Measure C they would fix my road, and my road has gone worse because it was a frontage road to the 180, right? So everybody used it as a shortcut and deteriorated his roadway to a point that it just became a dirt road. So people want to see local investment. They're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, and I think, one of the biggest tax dollars that we see leaving here is state income tax. We pay a lot in our state income tax. Well, people are shocked when they find out how much money of your state income tax comes back to Fresno. What percentage do we get? 0. 100% goes to the state of California. And so that's a state income tax. And so we really, even when we have sales tax and property tax, by the time the county gets a cut, by the time the school districts get a cut, the state of California, and that money comes back to us, it's not very much. But one thing for certain, when we tax ourselves locally, which is why I think people over the years of the self-help tax of Measure C, the Measure P, now depending on what we're going to do going forward in November, at least they know where those dollars are going. They can hold us accountable. And sometimes maybe we don't agree on how that money's spent. We have to have that debate locally between our council and my office. But we have a lot of different competing needs in Fresno as to how that money is spent. But one thing for certain, it needs to stay local.
Thank you for that. Okay, we're out of time. Closing comments, 1 minute or less. Start with Councilmember Miguel Arias. Do you have any special announcements you're going to make tonight or no?
I'm in Sacramento, lobbying the state legislators to help us restore the rights of voters to self determination that the supervisors, three of them, have intentionally blocked. And I'm hopeful that our state representatives will do the right thing and allow the Better Roads, Safer Streets initiative on the November ballot. And this is the most important work that we have ahead of us, not for my personal future, but for the future of our city and my district. We need to be able to retain not only the 54 million a year, but the more than $500 million that we get in state and federal resources that requires a local match. So I'm glad that our council was unanimously supporting this initiative, and I'll be happy to participate in the lobbying efforts that's not tied to any, third-party money related to this initiative. So thank you for the time, and and thank you to the mayor for his leadership on this work.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor, I think, Mayor, can you hear us? Mayor's video froze. We'll get back to the mayor in a minute. Bill?
No, I just want to thank Councilmember Arias and Mayor Dyer coming on, and I've had plenty of time to
Bill's on mute. I can't hear him.
enunciate my views.
Thank you.
Okay, wait a minute. Mayor is back. Okay, wait a minute. You froze again. Can you hear us? There we go. Okay, for closing comments, 1 minute or less.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't want the voters to be surprised if they see two ballot measures, and I don't want them to get confused by it. Hopefully they'll understand that it's not, if both pass, only one is going to be operative. But I think the people of Fresno would want me as the mayor to make sure that we have at least one on the ballot, and that we have an opportunity to not lose essential services, to continue with our getting our streets paved and providing good public transportation that's reliable. So that's my primary goal, and I'm hopeful that we can get it across the finish line in November.
thank you, Jerry. And my closing comments are, I sincerely hope and urge, and I hope that Miguel can maybe communicate that tonight, Assemblywoman Soria and Senator Caballero, to make sure the city of Fresno is getting its SB1 money back. What happens in Sacramento, all these taxes go up to SAC, then and some of the time gets borrowed for other things, and then may eventually come back. I learned about that from Jerry Brown, our governor, about 15 or 16 years ago, and he said, "Hey, everybody's been borrowing this money. I'm going to make sure the money comes back." And one of the easiest places to borrow is the transportation tax. I hope that we can get good accountability. We pay a lot of taxes in California, state, local. Of course, we all pay federal taxes as well, but we want accountability for that money. And the tax is not regressive. The higher income you got, the more taxes you pay. But a family of four that's making $80,000, $85,000, which is the median income in Fresno, that family, the amount of taxes they pay has a lot more impact on their lifestyle and their future than does somebody that makes a lot of money and has got to pay more taxes. But these folks, for the sake of these folks, we want accountability from from Sacramento politicians, Esmeralda Soria and a Caballero senator, making sure Fresno tax money comes back, doesn't get borrowed for other programs that we did not vote on. So that's my, I urge our politicians to do that. And then I want to end with Nick Gonzalez. I don't think I've ever met Nick. By the way, here's this, and I want to end with this statement. We can change the world with kids. No, that's not the one. It's not America when divided. We need to become united again. Honestly, it might be a dream versus reality. But really, when we're divided, we're not America. We should be united as a country. Unfortunately, there's a lot of forces that divide us. And I'm really ashamed of all the stuff that I hear about our country being so divided and so polarized. And I wish somebody would figure out a way of bringing us back. But we know some politicians live off of that. So the united country creates more challenges for the very folks at the very, very top.
Yep.
The mayor and I have a lot of PTSD from those politicians.
Yep. PTA. Extremism is an ugly thing right now. And, that's why I think at the local level, we try to focus on local issues, which brings us more to the middle.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Bill. Great show. Hope to see you back soon, especially after all these voting is done, Mayor and Councilmember Arias. Mayor,
All right.
thank you.
Have a good
Here to
night,
have
you
you.
guys. We'll
Thank
see you.
Thank you. Good night.